Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Gurukul is a combination of Sanskrit words guru and kul. A guru is a teacher, a guide, a role model, and kul means family or home. Before the British rule, Gurukuls served as India's primary education system, dedicated towards an overall development of students at practical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual levels.
Many of us can relate to the time when Apple was still a fruit, Twitter still a sound, and Amazon still a river. The things that we take for granted today never even existed then. Now is the time of smartphones, apps, app stores, online everything. So we sat down with the stakeholders of Vadodara City in
education, which is how it became a great economy, based on research and a very educated community. People from all over the world used to come. So what happened to that education system? Of course, we know in history what happened, how it got destroyed. So the revival of this is not a simple matter. There were these 64 kalas, which would today translate as the liberal arts kind of curriculum. So that has been lost, at least it's not in the curriculum. People are chauvinistic in the sense we talk about how great it was. We need 21st century training material, pedagogy, etc., based on Vedic liberal arts. It's that simple. So all this idea of social justice, ideas of gender fluidity, ideas of minorityism and all kinds of stuff, and secularization of the Vedic heritage and Sanskrit, these are indirectly and implicitly under the surface buried in the foundation of this new liberal arts, and this has been brought into India, and it's an invasion, it's a further colonization, hoping that Sangita, and I'm very glad to be part of her project, will bring this out. So we want something which is future-proof, taking the past into the future, not chauvinism, and yet Vedic, and not Harvard.
मैनुअल मैंने भारत का कोना कोना देख लिया, ना ही मुझे कहीं कोई चोर मिला और ना ही कोई भिखारी। हमारा मानना है कि उस देश के पास बेशुमार धन दौलत है। हम वो लोग हैं जो अपने आप को सबसे सभ्य मानते हैं, लेकिन सभ्यता की शुरुआत सही मायनों में भारत से ही हुई है। मुगलों ने कई सालों तक उन पर राज किया। उन्होंने उनका खजाना जरूर लूटा, लेकिन उनकी तहजीब नहीं लूट पाए।
उनकी ताकत वेदों, शिक्षा और सभ्यता में है। वो ताकत छीन लो, फिर भारत को लूटना आसान हो जाएगा।
My name is Sahana Singh and I have been writing about India's educational heritage for a long time now. I have been heavily disillusioned by the modern educational system, which works at a very superficial level and does not really create well-integrated individuals with a broad understanding of the world. On the other hand, I have been very inspired by India's ancient Gurukulas, Mathas, Agraharas, Viharas and various other institutions which imparted high quality education. And that's why I always wish that somebody would make a good documentary on this topic while also showing the relevance of that ancient system for today's times.
In ancient times, India was known to have been formal universities in the world. More than 2,700, a huge university existed in India where approximately 10,000 students came from all over the world. This was Takshashila University of ancient India. It is said that admission to the students was purely based on the merit basis. Some of the great teachers of this university were Chanakya, Panini, Vishnu Sharma. Unfortunately, Takshashila had to face many invasions and attacks from north and west. Persians, Greeks, Shakas, Kushanas destroyed this institution many times. When Alexander came to India in 4th BC, he attacked this institution and took many scholars from there. In 5th century, White Huns attacked the whole city and destroyed all Buddhist monasteries and university, which never recovered again. Followed
Hi everyone, welcome to the Atman Show episode 23, and I have a very special guest, Sangita Iyer. Besides being a wife and mom, she's MA in psychology, CAPP, Cent FX diploma in adult education, documentary filmmaking institute certificate, certified adult educator. It's a long list. Certified positive psychology educator, member of Canadian Positive Psychology Association award-winning documentary filmmaker, and launched her own production house, Metal Films, to make films for a cause. Her documentary, Gurukul, selected and screened globally in 30 film festivals globally and won awards. Leadership and soft skills specialist for Fortune 100 companies in Canada, national field hockey player from India and captain of Gujarat State, children's book author, a Happy Tale series, Gratitude, board member of Basis Education Foundation, and a certified advanced Feng Shui specialist. So I'm really honored to talk to such a talented person. And please go ahead and let us know, complete your introduction, or do you have to say anything about my viewers before we begin our show, Gurukul?
Gosh, no, that was too lengthy already. It shows that I'm like this jack of all and master of none. I wear so many hats because I just think I'm a lifelong learner. That's it. I'm learning. I'm still a student, and I just like to try out different things. So that sounded, way too much of an introduction for me. But thank you for inviting me. It's a great show, and I love the theme of your show and the topics that you're pursuing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So basically, to my viewers, today we are going to talk about Gurukul, and Sangita Iyer has made one film on Gurukul, which is award-winning, and also she's in the making of a new film on Gurukul called Moolam. So let's start with something basic. Like, can you tell me what is the meaning of Gurukul?
I think most people would know, but just for those who may have not heard of the word Gurukul or don't know what it means, it's basically it's two Sanskrit words put together, Guru and Kul. It's a combination, and Guru means your teacher, your mentor, your role model, and Kul means usually a family or a home. So loosely it translates to the home of a teacher, and this is exactly what a Gurukul was. It was a sort of a home for the shishyas, where they would go and learn and acquire knowledge. And one of the earliest mentions of the Gurukul system of education, we can find them in the Vedas and Upanishads. So this system of education was in existence since ancient times in India. So that's really what a Gurukul is.
Okay, what is the importance of Gurukul system of education, and how can it be implied in today's world?
If you see the history of India, our highlights is like the rich traditional and cultural heritage of our country. And one of those best known traditions, according to me, from our past is our unique system of education, which was the Gurukul system. And as I mentioned before, it existed since the Vedic age. And, the beauty of this was that they provided a very well-rounded, a holistic sort of education. So it was a place of learning where, under the guidance of your guru, the student would learn in an environment that really helped them grow spiritually and mentally. And they would spend a few years there, in the service of their guru. They would study along with the guru, help the guru in their daily tasks, even chores like cooking and washing. And this kind of tradition played a very significant part in preserving our dharma and in passing our knowledge, of our scriptures and our traditions down the generations. So the other thing about Gurukuls in the past was that, if you notice, they were always located in very scenic and serene places. They were surrounded by nature, far from the hustle and bustle of city life, right? And this was a great sort of a physical environment to teach little kids, giving them that ambience where you're away from the hustle bustle in nature, away from worldly distractions. So it was such a conducive environment for little children to learn. And the other aspect I find that's missing today in Gurukuls was this one very important value, I would say a crucial value of self-reliances. Because when you're away, from everything and you're in this sense of isolation, you grow as a human being, you become self-reliant. And that tranquil ambience of schools was really ideal for learning and holistic development. So for me, these are some of the highlights that come to mind with regards to what was so good about the Gurukul system, which doesn't exist today. And I just go on record to say, Anamika, that I am by no means an expert in this. Like you, I am also curious. I'm asking questions. I'm meeting subject matter experts, interviewing them, reading books. And so this is just based on my learning, and I may not be completely accurate because I don't think I'm an expert on this topic, but it's a topic that's very deeply close to my heart, which is why I'm making films on this.
So, Sangeeta, I just want to ask you, like in today's, in the present scenario, like if you see, visit or talk to any of the families, whether settled in India or settled abroad, and if you talk to them, they don't know anything about Vedas, Upanishad, and you think this is one of the main reason that the Gurukul system was abolished by our invaders, and that's the main reason that today's people from the subcontinent don't know anything about our culture?
Yeah, very loaded question, and I could go on and on. But again, I'll try to give you a condensed version based on my understanding. Again, with the interviews that I've done and spoken to and people and read about it. I would love for people to watch our film Moolam when it's ready and hear it firsthand from these experts who have written about this. But yes, to answer your question, Anamika, I mean, as you know, India or Bharat, we know that was a treasure in terms of knowledge. People across the world came to learn to India, and unfortunately, our knowledge system faced a lot of destruction and devastation, first by the Islamic invasion and then by the British rule. The more I read about it, the more I think about it, talk about it, honestly, the more upsetting it gets, because I feel that the core damage was done. I mean, physical damage was done, but the core damage was done to our spirit, because during the Islamic rule, libraries and books and scriptures and famous universities, Nalanda, Takshashila, Vallabha, the list goes on, were burned down. And I mean, can you imagine the devastation that was felt at that time? And how do you, as a civilization, recover from that kind of psychological damage, right? The other thing was freedom of women was truncated with the Islamic rule. So that impacted education, because then their education was restricted. We were one of the richest countries when the Mughals invaded us. And in terms of scientific knowledge too, from what I know, India was way ahead of everyone else. But the Mughals didn't have any interest in pursuing that area. So what was happening parallelly, on the other hand, is that Western countries started making advancements in area of science and technology. When the British arrived, they realized that people of India take a lot of pride in their ancient culture. And they realized that Indians probably could not be slaved until they stayed associated with their ancient culture. So apart from the part that it was a wealthy place and, our wealth was stolen, the other weapon I feel like they really used was completely dismantling our education system. And so how did they do that? They set up their own policies. They destroyed the indigenous elementary school system that we had, which was one of the best. They destroyed our Gurukul system. They introduced the English Education Act. They emphasized on Western values. And what happened is that their education system started dividing Indian society, and our ancient culture was abandoned. People really started to believe that their civilization was inferior and Western civilization was way superior. So what I feel is that that kind of education system by the British, it totally snatched away our identity. There is a book written about it too, in about this destruction by Dharampalji, a book called A Beautiful Tree. One should read it if they get a chance to. And what happened is that, our elementary, or what we also know as primary education, was so highly admired because a child, that foundational period, the foundational years in a child's life are critical. And our system was so wonderful that it said that British took the Indian education system actually back to England and introduced it there, because until then, only the children of the nobles were being educated in England. Unlike India, where education was imparted to the masses. And, British apparently adopted the system for educating the masses from India. So you're absolutely right when you say that we're not aware of our rich heritage and education system, because see, India was plundered and looted by both the Islamic invaders and British rulers. And by the time they were done, I think we were completely brainwashed into believing that we are backward, that we are regressive. And what ended up happening is that, we didn't know our own languages, we didn't learn Sanskrit. All our scriptures and texts are written in Sanskrit. So when you abolish that Gurukul system, it totally disconnected us from our roots. And I personally regret that too. I remember learning bits and pieces of Sanskrit when I was growing up in school, but I wish it was made mandatory, to learn Sanskrit, because that's the only way we can read our scriptures and texts. Now, mind you, there are English translations probably of that, but I don't know how authentic are they, because again, those translations were probably done by the colonizers. So you're absolutely right. And that's, in my opinion, that's the reason we don't know anything about our rich heritage.
So not only that, I still feel like people's, even though we got freedom, independence, but I still feel their minds are colonized. See, concept of Gurukul, people take pride right now. People take pride in English medium school, and they are doing academics. And so the thing is, like, have you seen that movie called some movie called Hindi medium, English medium or something like that, that people are really running and giving lump sum money to be educated in English medium school. And so I think that still people mind are colonized, even they have got independence. So so what do you have any comment on that one?
Yeah, it's a great question, Anamika, and it's true not just in movies, because I think that films, are a mirror to society as well, and vice versa. So what we see in the films that you're saying, I've seen it, and probably you have in real life too. And I feel there's nothing wrong in learning English and knowing English. I'm not putting it down in that sense, but knowing our mother tongue, knowing our language, knowing Sanskrit, I think that was so key for us as a civilization, which we missed out on. And so in spite of that rich educational heritage, what's happening in present day also post-independence is, I think our system is deficient in essence. So we have this mindless acquisition of knowledge that we are running after, and it needs to suit the employment and professional pursuit that, that's on mind. And that's how the schools are designed too, and the curriculum is designed too. Even present day society, as a society, we have to nurture the next generation, the younger generation. But society as a whole is deficient in terms of moral, ethical, spiritual, and what we call dharmic values. So what happens is, again, there's this, not just schools, but parental pressure. I have seen when I was filming Gurukul and meeting people and talking to them, there's so much parental pressure on children, and that's just increasing. And the stress is focused on competitive exams, grades. Again, healthy competition is not a bad thing, but this is kind of taking a toll, I feel, on the younger mental framework. You see, there is a rise at an alarming rate when it comes to suicides, drug abuse, depression, etc. in youth. So why is that on the rise if our education system is so amazing, right? It's something to consider. Children are getting alienated from a very crucial aspect, I find, which is values. And so if we pointlessly have this pressure, to our children about rote learning without understanding instead of holistic learning, this is why we are facing some of the challenges. And mind you, rote learning gets has a bad rep, and I feel that rote learning is not all bad, but the point I'm trying to make is that the understanding of content and having a holistic content, that is not the focus of modern education system. So what has happened, standard of education has declined drastically. The education system is not balanced, it's very lopsided. Like I always like to say, if you consider the four wheels of a car, or the four legs of a chair, even if you take out one leg, it becomes lopsided. And right now that's what it is like, it's lopsided because it's not well rounded, especially when it comes to our kids. So that's just my thoughts, and based on my experience.
So I just want to say, like, some people, like including me, they come to abroad for education, like, they do it from India, or from any other continent, and they say, oh, in India it is all the mugging up, it's all ratta and mugging, and here it is so good and nice. I said, who imparted that? That is not even our education system. Our education was Gurukul. So who actually set up that education system? So do you have anything to say on that?
No, this is why I said earlier is that, mind you, rote learning, which is ratta, gets a
Yeah.
very bad rep, has a very bad rep out there. I was one of those people maybe a decade ago who thought so too, along those lines. But in speaking to people, and we have actually covered that a bit in the film, because again, it's such a, I feel it's a myth that needed to be busted. And that's why I said earlier is that rote learning gets a bad reputation, but there's a time and place for rote learning too, and it has its own importance, which we have kind of talked a little bit about in the film. So I'll keep again that element of surprise without answering it. But yeah, it's a great point, and I'm glad you're asking these questions, because it makes me feel like I asked the right questions too while I was making the film, because this did come up. This came up.
Yeah, yes. Basically my setting up this channel is like, breaking up all those myths that people, even the people from the subcontinents, I feel, just get out from this colonized mind. So that's the whole my. So are
And
they
I applaud you for that. So I really applaud you for that, because we need to have these kind of conversations. Very important.
okay? Are they planning to revive Gurukul system of education?
It's already happening, with all the travel I've done and visited so far for filming. This Gurukul system is experiencing a resurgence, and I'm so glad to see that. When I was making Moolam, again, like I said, I had a whole wish list of Gurukuls to visit, and I started doing that. And one of them, I'll again, I know it sounds very secretive, but again, for the element of surprise in the film, I really was so impressed. I spent a day and a half with them. And I remember leaving them and saying that I feel cheated. I really feel cheated when it comes to my education and my children's education, because if I could turn back the clock, I'd like to come back and study here. You know, it's so good to see that it's been in the last few years, people have taken up and people are getting to understand the value of our heritage and our culture and the importance of that well-rounded education. So yeah, more and more Gurukuls are coming up. I feel like some of them who are just new and have just started in their infancy stage may need a little time to maybe fully up and functioning. But then there are some who I've seen are like, 5 to 7 years, have been doing good work, and now they probably need to expand in scope and capacity, because people are getting to find out about them. Parents are seeing that, oh, they are seeing the results in the children, right? And so there are many, there are different stages and phases. They also all follow different models. Like there's not one model of Gurukul that they follow, which is very interesting, and it was a great learning for me. But all I can say is those who are making an effort to bring back our ancient knowledge systems, I feel they need to be applauded for their efforts, and also they need to be supported financially. The one thing that lacks is support in terms of funding for the work they are doing. And so I hope as a community, governments and countries support them through funding so that they can grow, flourish, and as a result, our next generation can grow and flourish. I feel that the future generation actually is truly blessed that these are reviving and they get a chance to experience true learning and true education, and also for parents, like to get the kids out of this rat race that we've become so accustomed to, right, in modern a modern education system.
So basically, like, this whole Gurukul system was based on Maharishi. Like, we had this Patanjali, Maharishi, Aryabhat and Bhaskaracharya and Kannad and those type of rishis. So you think that if even if we revive Gurukul system, will we be able to get such kind of gurus and rishis in our Gurukul system?
So yeah, see, when we think of Gurukuls, we think of Rishi, we think of a banyan tree and a Rishi with long hair sitting. So that's again a bit of a myth. Yes, of course, back in the days it was, and we have Rishis and Gurus in this day and age too. But I like to call the other half of it who I met, I call them modern day Rishis. They may not have the jattas and long hair and they don't sit under a tree, but they're pretty much doing the same kind of work because they've done the study, they've done the research, they have the passion, they have the subject matter expertise to run a Gurukul. I'm also seeing more and more that there are different models. So some of the Gurukuls I visited, they didn't have just one pattern of learning. There were different models. And it was nice to see that, this is working for them, but that may not work for the other group, but it works for them. So in that sense, parents have this wide, diverse choice to pick from as well, because there are different models and whatever suits each family or each person. The one I'm talking about, what I liked about them, they really beautifully blended the past with the present, because there are things in the current present times that we can't just forget about or not deal with. So they blended it beautifully for the kids, which was very interesting to watch how they did it, because I observed them for what, a day and a half. I interviewed people, I filmed them. So it was very interesting how they blended it beautifully. And they've done 7 to 8 years of work before they even got started, right? So whether it's the rishis like you're talking about, or like I call them, the modern rishis, as long as they're running it and they're doing a good job of it and providing holistic education, that's what we can ask for. And then so far the experience has been amazing for me to watch them do it.
So can you tell me, like, where is it? Like, if somebody wants to go, are you able to reveal it? Like, where are
Wait
they?
a bit longer, little bit longer. We'll reveal. I am trying to create a whole list. There are so many. I mean, there are so many, and I
Just
only
state,
found out.
maybe? Just maybe a state, not.
Oh gosh, there's Gujarat, there's UP, there's Karnataka, there's
Oh.
so many, Kerala, Maharashtra. There's spread across. So which is was a surprise for me too, because I know it was, I knew it was reviving, but I was just blown away by the extent of which the revival is happening, the speed, the rapid speed, which I think is great. So yeah, several states, and several gurukuls in several states. So I don't even know if I can get to each one of them, but I wanted to get to at least a handful of them. And, basically, I'm trying to filter based on if they have different models of curriculum and how they teach, then maybe one from each, and just to show people what exists and how modern day Gurukuls are working.
And also, like, you think that people graduating from there, they would be able to get jobs and they are at par with all these, Harvard, MIT, and people graduating, they will be at the par with them and they will be able to get jobs and stuff like that?
So from what I've learned and seen so far, my personal belief, absolutely. In fact, I feel that these kids who are graduating from there are actually better adjusted, and they will easily be able to adapt to mainstream while staying deeply rooted in our culture. And again, I'm glad you asked this question, because this is one of the questions in the film. The reason being, this is one of the most common and first questions that parents ask when they come to the Gurukuls. What happens to my child after they attend a Gurukul? Will they get a job? So I heard this from so many places, which is why we included this question in the film too, where we've asked people with the expertise and who run Gurukuls to answer that question for us, as to how do you answer the parents, and share with us as well, because it's a very, very the most fundamental question that comes. But yeah, I feel they absolutely can.
And also they will be more holistically, like you said, four wheels of a car. So they will be more holistic spiritually and things like that. So more
Yeah, because
have a good
yeah.
mental health apart from having a good skill set to work. They will have a good mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit bullseye on that because see, I think they teach everything that a modern education system teaches. So when in terms of subjects, right, like your usual math, science, language, they're teaching all that, art, dance, drama. But then I've seen some teach astrology and Ayurveda, and then of course they're teaching the Vedas, so they're learning Sanskrit, agriculture like Krishi, yoga, entrepreneurship. Some of them have gaushalas where the children are learning how to take care of that. They're learning cooking, weaving, and the list is endless. And so it's so well rounded. And I feel, especially in this day and age, the reason I started to embark on this second film too about this is my background's in education and psychology. I work closely. I've trained people. I've trained adults. I've worked closely with teachers in the past, with students, and I'm seeing this mental health issue is, again, the pandemic didn't help, right? It went on a spiral high. And this is actually the need of the hour, because if you hear of these words, we've heard it in the West in the recent like couple of decades. But if you think about it, Gurukul system, because it was so well-rounded, so holistic, it didn't just focus on what we know today as the IQ, right? The intelligent quotient, but it's EQ and SQ, and now there's AQ. This was all existent back in the Gurukul days. We didn't have these fancy terms for that, but that's what they call it now. EQ is for emotional intelligence, and then they came up with spiritual intelligence, and now the newest one in the last decade I've heard is adversity quotient. So that is all what we did decades ago, centuries ago anyway, in our Gurukul system. So I feel, yes, it will absolutely tackle the mental health challenge that we are seeing our children face today.
So Sangita, I was doing a episode with one of our professor. His name is Subhash Kak, and we're all discussing that see, in today's world, modern science kids are studying. Okay, Newton discovered gravity and laws of motion, but back then rishis like Bhaskaracharya, Aryabhatta, and all these people, right, Kannad, they had written these kind of laws of motion and gravity like 2700 years ago in Surya Siddhanta and things like that. So now in Gurukul system, they start reading all that. And do you think they will come up as a conflict with the modern day science, what the current students are reading? Because obviously they will say, okay, this is the reality, this is what I see. So how do you think to handle that?
Oh, I mean, there is proof that exists, right? Where it came from and when it started. It's a matter of, I feel that we just weren't aware because our textbooks didn't teach us those facts. I remember growing up, I studied psychology, and I studied in India at the time. And I remember studying all psychologists, and everything about psychology was all Western psychologists. And then years later, now, at this stage and age of my life, when I started to dig deeper, I realized that, oh my God, why haven't we learned about the psychology that came from India? Why haven't we heard about those names? So now I know better. And that's why I said it was our textbooks, our education system that didn't highlight. But if the children are learning that today, it's a fact. It's the proof exists. How do you counter that, right? So there are a lot of authors, researchers, historians who have written books, who do podcasts, who talk about these things. So you can't refute what existed and what's true.
No, what I'm saying is when you come in the mainstream, right, there will be some conflict. No, I know this, I know about Vaisheshika Sutra, I know about Surya Siddhanta, and the other guys that know, I know they're studying from Harvard, and there could be some conflict. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah, conflict, I feel conflict is okay. I feel that the difference now, I think the difference now, and I could be wrong, just speaking from experience here, like I said, I'm no expert, is that, say 10 years ago, I did not probably have the in-depth knowledge and the information that I needed to counter these kind of challenges, right? Or conflicts, as you call it. Now I do. I feel I'm armed with information, and I feel empowered that I am able to sit across and say, hey, but you know what? This happened before that, and guess who did this and who brought that and who influenced this person. So yeah, conflict can happen, but as long as I am armed with that information and the facts, I feel very empowered. I myself, or my children for that matter, my friends, my family, we didn't have that knowledge before to even counter it. I remember going to certain courses here because I have a background in positive psychology too, which I got a certification here when I was in the corporate world. And I remember at that time, this was over like 10, 12 years ago, listening to certain concepts that they would teach in the workshop. And I would think that, why do I feel like I know something about it? But like I've heard about it, it would be an ancient Indian concept, but what has happened, it's been taken. And I have to say sometimes plagiarized, but it's been reworded and wrapped in a nice little, a gift basket and with a bow and given it back to us and not
saying
realizing
it's Western
that
thinking, advanced thinking, and you are regressive.
and we believe it. Why do we believe it? Because we don't know any better.
Exactly.
So now that we know better, I feel that we are empowered, and it's okay if there is conflict, but it's almost like, and I don't sound like, it's a fight, but I feel like we're reclaiming what's ours, and nothing wrong with that, right? We are reclaiming that this is ours. And I think I give the benefit of doubt to people as well, that not everybody is the kind of person who'll get into a conflict. It's even how you explain it to them. If you show them references, and if you're able to back up your claim, a lot of people are reasonable in understanding that, oh well, we didn't know this either, kind of thing. But yeah, then there'll always be some who will refute and not like it, and that's okay.
Do you think we should run a movement saying that, these are the laws of motion, these are the laws of, even in chemistry, physics, and psychology, that this is, we should, if it is on a name of somebody, we should, fight for it or reclaim for it, saying that at least refer to our books and our rishis and our names. Do you think we should run a movement or something like that?
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of authors that I've come across who are doing this work already. So, I mean, their movement is them writing books about it, or them talking about it. Some I have also interviewed for my film, even though it's about the education system, because there is a deep connection to the work they're doing. And there's parallels, but yeah, I mean, I think that is a sort of a movement where there are authors who are publishing books or writing books, who are doing shows, who are getting the word out, saying, you know what, this came from us, this is ours, and you need to give us that credit in that sense. See, I feel India has been incredible because knowledge is good to share, and I feel the world has benefited so much from what India has given to them. I, as an individual, always say that, that's great. This is be it yoga or Ayurveda or, this Gurukul system, education system. The list is endless in that sense. But give credit where it's due, right?
Exactly.
That's all I say.
Yeah.
Use it for your benefit. You're doing meditation, don't twist it and say mindfulness. Like it, or if you're doing a certain pranayam, you're giving this fancy, some box breathing. I don't know, like this is pranayam. Call it what it is. Yeah.
Now a new thing is coming, psychedelic.
That's it. Yeah. So
Nothing.
when I read, there was a report in the scientific journal of some, and I read it. I'm like, but this is pranayam. What are they talking about? So this is very common. Like I said, the biggest difference now is between now and maybe years ago is that we more and more Indians are taking the interest, are kind of awakened in that sense, are doing the work, the reading, the listening, and understanding that we come from this rich heritage and civilization that we really need to be proud of. Imagine that many years of brainwashing, generation after generation. So now we have to kind of remove that, right, in front of that dark cloud and come out of it. It takes time, but I'm just so happy to see that it's happening, and it happened for me as well. I'm part of that. A decade ago, it started happening to me, and I was like, wow, why didn't I know this before? Why didn't I? And this is the reason I kind of almost became a filmmaker, I left my corporate job, and of course I wanted to be with my kids. That was one of the main reasons. But the reason I didn't go back after taking a bit of a break and I went back to film school is this was my way of making that difference is, oh my God, there is so much that we don't know. And I think film is a great medium to get the message out and reach several people. And that's why I went to filmmaking school, was to make that difference. So that's how my journey started, to be honest, is like how you started your YouTube channel. This was my way of saying, oh, I need to do something about this. And, you know, this is what turned out to be my passion, is making films about these topics, because people need to know. But yeah, more and more people are getting aware. And I'm seeing this sense of pride that we are developing in ourselves, which is so nice to see. It didn't exist for a very, very long time. Very, very long time.
Yeah, so my idea of creating the channel was like, anybody who's coming from the subcontinent, take pride in your roots, take pride in your own culture, and know what it is. Because you don't know anything, your minds are still colonized and running towards the West. So West is great, nothing wrong with that, but then know yourself, where you come from, what rich and grandeur culture and heritage that you come from. So yeah, that was my main
No,
reason. Yeah.
no, absolutely, you're right. Like, it's not just because we are proud of our culture and of our rich culture, doesn't mean that we say that West is bad. But the point is that sense of inferiority complex, I think we don't even realize, but subconsciously, we were always trying to get approval from them. You know, it's like always looking for, is it okay? Am I doing okay? Like, do you approve? May not be in those words exactly. I think there has been a shift in that now. Is like, you can be very rooted in your culture and still be part of this whole mainstream that's going on, this modern, especially we live here too, right? So we have to be part of that, but you can still be very rooted in your culture and very solid in that. And I think that's what the Gurukul system of education does. This is what I feel is the biggest difference. And the other one, like I highlighted, because of my background in psychology and education, is the mental health pandemic is truly concerning for me. So that too, I think, is something that the Gurukul education system can help, not just India, but the world, because mental health pandemic is happening in the world now, across the board.
All right, it was great talking to you, a great conversation. Before I let you go, do you have anything to say to my viewers of The Atman Show?
Oh, I've been saying for all this time, but I'll just say keep supporting channels like The Atman Show, people like Anamika, because they're doing a great job of, educating us and making us aware. So keep supporting her and spread the word about her. Great job, Anamika. Keep it up.
Thank you and good luck for your film, Moolam.
Thank you.
And bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.